My name is Jock Bell. My age is 56 years old. My occupation is, geologist, water scientist, extraordinaire, and people lover. You know, I love to be around the folks of the world, to rollick and play with them, and to. I'm a spokesman for Trinity Springs, the water company. I'm on the board of directors of Trinity Springs. I hired a partner who is a CEO. I don't wear that suit. I'm not one of those guys. I'm more in the mutableness of the water. So I find myself kindling my energy in the sense of the water. I virtually discovered the water when I was a younger age, and have spent years, various times throughout my life in the water before I became more familiar that the water had curative healing properties. I witnessed those curative healing properties from older people who were coming to collect the water years ago and who had multitudes of testimonies of what the water had done to them. And at the time I felt that I was on a pathway of life living foods but I didn't know what living life foods really were. I was mainly into organic, mainly into natural foods, and had no idea that what I was bathing in and what I was spend my time a lot had medicinal therapeutic properties that we would discover later on. And so it led me on a journey of sorts that kept drawing me to the springs through dreams and through the beautiful lady that is my partner of 27 years, and we played and spent time in the waters. We owned a hotel in Sun Valley, Ketchum, Idaho, and we went all the time. We went over to the springs, quite often, and there was just something about this water that has no sulfur smell, and when you got in it and came out of it, your body would just feel silky soft, and you were energized, and we didn't know what all that meant at the time. We really didn't have a true understanding or a handle on that what we were bathing in would be actually a drinking water for mankind later on. So all of this has been playing out, and one day I was on 3rd Street in the middle of Ketchum, Idaho, and I was wondering, what am I going to do with my life? We had sold our hotel. We were out retired. We were retired for about 10 years, running around the world. And what I was doing, we were going to every hot springs we could go to. In fact, I went to about 2,000 hot springs or so, if you add them all up, counting all the ones in Yellowstone and everything else. It was a huge in-depth. I was fascinated with hot springs. I was fascinated in the fact that this is coming from some unknown world in the earth, and what is this? You know, this felt different than surface waters. This had a different feeling than being in a swimming pool. It conjured up a whole mystery in itself that I was fascinated by. So I took on a quest and journey to discover water. Being that I'm a water sign, I really felt that there was some directive, some calling going on for me to understand as much about water, being that I live in that sign, that I could possibly find out. So as that journey kept going on, the more I learned about, the more I was taught by the water. Let's say that the water has a credible spirit that teaches mankind something that we all hold dear, that we are 70% or more water, composed of water. Our planet is 70% water, and it really behooves all of us to understand the depth and the meaning of what pure water can really offer to the physical cell system or the physical body itself, and even its mental capacity, its ability to have respect for the waters on the planet. What I found that the multitudes of the masses have not an understanding of what real, true, pristine, pure waters are all about, and that doesn't mean pured by some purification process of filters, carbon filters, or ozonating, or whatever, disinfectants we call it in the water industry. I wanted, being one of the first organic potato growers of organic potatoes in the United States, I kind of pioneered that early on in the day. My dad was always lay out 100 acres for me, and he said, this is your taw, this is what you're going to make your money off, and you can go anywhere in the 7,000 acres and grow these potatoes, and it's your baby. And so I decided to grow organic potatoes. I just felt like pesticides and all this stuff was not where to go. And later on, as I sold the farm, come back to the water here, I realized I wanted to be able to put water in its live, organic state. You know, to find a spring that I actually could do that was non-polluted by man, that had not been intervened upon by pesticides, by industrial waste, by radiation from the atmosphere, that was virtually a captive aquifer. Meaning a captive aquifer is it's captivated in the earth and it has no way of being polluted by modern day man, other than if you went to inject it with something through injection wells or injecting into the springs. At which time the spring would more than likely cough it up, because at Trinity Springs, the company I represent here, we have a water that's coming up virtually about 20 tons every minute coming up at us under its own pressure. It's not being pumped. There is no borehole. There's no casing. We have not breached this aquifer system in any way. In other words, I had a lady tell me the other day, well, this is such holy water. Why would you want to take this water and sell it when it's so holy? Well, the fact is that the water, mankind could really use a pure form of hydration, a pure form of water. And I felt really compelled that as a steward of the water, that if we could actually coddle and nurture and not shock or wound this water and gently place this water into a bottle in the most, conscious form, we could do that. We would be offering something that has not been done in the industry. Structured water to me means a water that is literally in the earth from a hydrogen bonding, from hydrogen and oxygen state. It had a long time to get to know itself on a molecular level, meaning that it has a bonding relationship with all the minerals, and what has happened, it has built a structure based on several of the key elements in the water, one of them being silica. Silica, by the way, is, I call, the most conscious element in the periodic table. It's a water that always tries to find its own kind. It rounds them all up. It does this incredible magical work in all phases of the human body. If it wasn't for silica or SiO2 in your body, not one neurotransmitter or synaptical system or any conscious mechanism in your body would actually work. It's like a computer banking system of sorts, and your whole mental systems would be just shut down. In other words, we based silica SiO2, we've actually created a computer chip, and all the information, the very quartz crystal, radio, everything, our whole information age has been all based around silica, SiO2. And so when we bring in a structured or a microhydrant structured water, now microhydrant means that the molecular state of that water is dissolved solids. Now that's quote TDSs, total dissolved solids in water. That means the mineral content of the water they evaluate that, and they tell you how many minerals you got in water by how many total dissolved solids you have in your water. Now, total dissolved solids is a basic term, and now we can go and elaborate a little more of sizeness of particulate dissolved solids and what size are they in. Now, Trinity Springs, for instance, and there are several other springs, we have identified a few others in the world that have been really superheated beyond at 300 degrees or plus 300 degrees in the earth. These spring waters literally have gone down through the lithosphere and got into these aquifers, these recharge zones, and been recharged back up. And as they come back up, they literally, some of these come up through virtually quartz crystals. Now, these quartz crystals literally are being created by the waters themselves. In other words, through thousands of years, the water's been precipitating out of solution and actually forming these crystals as a protective barrier. So nothing can come into the water, nothing can impregnate the water, nothing can interfere with the water from the surface of the earth. In other words, we have areas in the world that have these fault conduit systems or fractures in the earth or fissures in the earth that have led the entryway for these waters to come up to the surface from some eons ago, from very old time periods. And what happens when these waters walk down to the lithosphere or walk down to the strata, they literally have, it takes 10 times or longer for them to get down, and so therefore they get filtered, and then they run through a meandering, a vortexing action that literally inscripts them and codifies them with energy. Then as they pass back up after being superheated under pressure, they further again pass through a quartz crystal body. Well, now this quartz crystal body has taken on a different form. It's not just basic quartz. It is the crystals that the water is literally creating to protect the source of the water from any invasion of any other sources. So what microclustered structured water is that structure that builds within the water, that all of the harmonics or the harmony of all these minerals come together in a cluster or in a form or in a format or in an embodiment as a literally, I call it a spiritual thing that is in living with life force living energy, because it's come in contact with all these anomalies of different magnetic systems. It's walked through all of these charge values. By the way, when you pass water through billions of crystals, you literally, when it passes across these crystals, you squeeze off a piezoelectric effect that literally is charged within the silica itself as it's transported up through this medium. And what happens here, it literally gets codified, it keeps getting more charged and more organized. So what you have is you have a transmitter, transponder, receiver system. You have literally a system at work, not some just free-floating, chaotic, juvenile ions. In other words, ionic fluids or ionic states is what water is in. It's an ionic medium. But these different ionic mediums have different mass ionic states. They have different density states. So when you superheat water, what happens with this, you turn the water into a term we call metamorphic waters. They've been metamorphized by the earth itself. And through this metamorphism, the bonding relations get squeezed way down to smaller sizes. So what you have the purest form of oxygen and hydrogen you can actually partake of in your body. This is oxygen that has not been titrated with modern day atmosphere in the form of modern day carbon, in the form of oxides of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, all your oxide radicals that literally attach themselves to all water molecules, making that H2O and that oxygen, not just one oxygen atom, but a cluster of oxygen atoms that literally represents 12, 18, as high as huge amounts of oxygen. Well, there's this term been termed out here, antioxidants. Now, we don't use this because a lot, but antioxidants are all based around redox potential or oxidation reduction. It's the biggest study going on out there. I know that's a lot of terminology to be put in front of the public out here, but billions of dollars are being spent on redox potential oxidation reduction, because what you really want to do in the physical body, you want to take on protons to donate electrons. In other words, instead of the reverse, instead of expending positively charged ionic fluids in your body that rip off electrons, you want to donate electrons to be able to donate energy to the physical cell system, the physical cell structure of the body. Now, it's a very complex system. I mean, it's very hard to simplify it, to kiss it, so to speak, because without going in the redox potential or oxidation reduction, there's an organization that goes on within molecular states, which we coin as an expression, literally organized water or microhydrant structured water. Structured water is literally a water that's very organized, that really has a mission in life. It has a directive. It has a guidance principle. It has a consciousness. It has, by the way, water has memory. Water, you know, that has a long time to get to know itself, is literally we now find you can actually program information into these waters on a molecular level. These waters have literally ability to memorize things if you keep the language very simple and start working on it. What I will tell you, we came out as a mineral dietary supplement under the Dietary Health and Education Act, under DSHEA. The only way you can put water in its live, organic kosher certified, Neutrilicus Heidelwasser certified state, is to literally become, only way we could get around and skirt the FDA regulations was to be a real mineral dietary supplement. See, here's a true spring water. Trinity Springs is a true spring water that can't say it's a true spring water unless it processes itself under the regular, normal FDA regulations. They look at everything as disinfectants. Only good water is a dead water. And the dead water means that you got to make sure there's no bacteria, no anything in it that can be harmful. Trinity Springs comes up out of the earth with no contaminants involved. No man-made contaminants, no volatile organics, no pesticide residues, zero. So we can bottle Trinity in its live organic state. In fact, we actually sanitize and sterilize with this water. We have a heat exchanger that raises the temperature to 212, and we actually sanitize and sterilize with this water. And so nothing touches this water but this water, not even the atmosphere. You have to keep this in a very closed-in system. We have a HEPA clean room. It's surgical quality, computer chip quality that goes in 2 locked doors. You have to come in with a whole suit that literally is all sanitized. So there's no mold spores, no fungus, nothing gets in this clean room. And so what we've gone through, we've got literally hundreds of quality control procedures that they have not even written up in any manuals. Because we had to take this to another level of purity to be able to put water in its live organic state. In fact, we've been given an honor of the first Neutrilicus Heidelwasser water in the United States. Well, Neutrilicus Heidelwasser isn't something to really take lightly. In European communities, that's the highest acclaim or highest award you can be given water. That's water that's whole, unbroken, in and of itself, that's been untouched by man in any way. It's very precious water. And there's only a few springs like it in the world that have these types of waters that can actually be bottled in their live state. So we had the Institute Fresenius come over and help us on what kind of procedures we had to go through to be able to put water in its live organic state. It was quite an accomplishment. Now there is a mineral usage on this because all dietary mineral supplements out here have to have a usage. Now this is a lot of bureaucratic, jargon and stuff that we had to comply with to be able to be a mineral dietary supplement. We had to go with all of our lawyers and all of our scientists and stuff to Washington, D.C. to be able to be exempt from any processing. And that was a long, long process that we've had to go through as a company to get there. And this, by the way, this container is balled, who people make the glass jars. This literally is a totally inert barrier. This will not bleed off any plasticizers, no plastics, all the way to trillions. We've tested this water to trillions, and we have a whole document you can get on our website at www.trinitysprings.com, where you'll find all that material at that actually states all of the water consciousness and all the accumulation of information we've been gaining on water for 10 years. Well, the Raw Foods Conference here, what it's all about to me, it's about the people, the look and the spirit of the people. What I've seen, I have ability to see energies around people, and boy, did I see a tremendous abundance of energy and focus and directive and open to change and lifestyle advancements in their life to way beyond this. You'll find the most harmonious people in this setting. That's what I found. I found this to be quite a network of exalted ones on the planet. Not some exalted the fact that we're better than anybody. It's the fact that they have a mission to help themselves and help the health issues that a lot of these people have come through a lot of challenges from a health standpoint and walk through the doorway of despair and bad health and on to get to this place, which is very meaningful for all of us. I felt I gained a kinship. It's like I've known these people for all my life, and now I finally get to meet them. And it's a precious place where we all get to come together. It's like a soul grouping of sorts of spirits that have a commonality, a common ground of understanding. We come through the chlorophyllite kingdom. We come through the green, through that mid-tonation, that what I call the chromotonation system of life, where you come to to mid-terms of your existence, realizing the most powerful thing on the planet is our plants for our life force living energy. And you see it in the people. It's very beautiful. Spent time in the waters. We owned a hotel in Sun Valley, Ketchum, Idaho, and we went all the time. We went over to the springs, quite often, and there was just something about this water that has no sulfur smell, and when you got in it and came out of it, your body would just feel silky soft, and you were energized, and we didn't know what all that meant at the time. We really didn't have a true understanding or a handle on that what we were bathing in would be actually a drinking water for mankind later on. So virtually discovered the water when I was a younger age, and have spent years, various times throughout my life in the water before I became more familiar that the water had curative healing properties. I witnessed those curative healing properties from older people who were coming to collect the water years ago and who had multitudes of testimonies of what the water had done to them. And at the time I felt that I was on a pathway of life living food and people lover. You know, I love to be around the folks of the world, to rollick and play with them, and to I'm a spokesman for Trinity Springs, the water company. I'm on the board of directors of Trinity Springs. I hired a partner who is a CEO. I don't wear that suit. I'm not one of those guys. I'm more in the mutableness of the water. So I find myself kindling my energy in the sense of the water. But I didn't know what living life foods really were. I was mainly into organic, mainly into natural foods, and had no idea that what I was bathing in and what I was spend my time a lot had medicinal therapeutic properties that we would discover later on. And so it led me on a journey of sorts that kept drawing me to the springs through dreams and through the beautiful lady that is my partner of 27 years, and we played and my name is Jock Bell. My age is 56 years old. My occupation is, geologist, water scientist extraordinaire. And